This stuff Yerushalmi Eruvin in the article Ozva Hadashon Ramarish Tap in the Vav Amud Aleph, Rav Shmuel, Rav Yitzchak, and in the Vilna that is on the bottom of Nun Beis Amud Aleph, the second last line. Rabbi Yerushalmi Eruvin. We'll tell you about this case in the Mishnah. We had a Mishnah of the Chuya Sabor, which is next to the in proximity to the Mirpeses and to the Chotzer, when it goes to Mirpeses, when the Chotzer. And in the Mishnah, we said that it only goes to Mirpeses within 4 tefachim of the Mirpeses. So the Gemara is going to clarify that statement. So Rabbi Yerushalmi Eruvin said, Mishlosh V'Arba. He must eat. So our Mishnah, the Mishnah says that if it's 10 tefachim high, it's if it's with less than 4 away from the mirpeses, it goes to the mirpeses. That's specifically when the distance between the tel and the mirpeses is for between 3 and 4 tefachim. Pachas mishleisha. If it's less than 3 tefachim away from the mirpeses, however, then afilu pachas me'aser muter. Now this is it says in the Gemara Yoser, so the article also changes to pachas me'aser, and that means that even if it's less than 10 tefachim high, since it's loved to the mirpeses, it's within 3 tefachim, it belongs to the mirpeses. If it's arba, if it's more than 4 tefachim away, afilu here it says pachas, again the Chaim changes it to afilu yoser me'aser usher. If it's more than 10 tefachim high, it's still usher to the mirpeses, because although it's in their airspace, so to speak, but it's too far away from them to be considered connected to mirpeses. Okay, it's a way to learn without changing here, so but that's the obviously. So the way to learn is this is the simplest way to deal with it. So therefore, our Mishnah today about Mishlosh Arba, between 3 and 4. Also, b'she'ein sham tikra. So the where there is no roof, and the there's a difference in between the carbon Ada and Pnei Moshe. I'm going to put it goes Pnei Moshe here. B'she'ein sham tikra she'ein kisui me'atikra al pi habor. There's no covering from the roof over the bore. If there's covering on the bore, I feel gava kama me'achotzer even if it's very high, much higher than the chotzer, since there's a roof over it, it belongs to the chotzer. If it passes, not to the balcony. Because the people in the chotzer can use it by removing the covering. But the people from the mirpeses above can't use it. Because it's covered. And they would have to go down and open it. It's difficult for them to, therefore, to use it. The Korban says, and now that I'm looking at it, again, I'm not so sure I'm so bad. The Korban is so difficult. It's not covering necessarily the bore. Moshe says covering of the bore, and therefore only it's easy for the people below to go and remove it, and after the people on high. But Korban says I think a much more simple shot. Says there's a hefsek between the people on top, between the people on top and the bore. So therefore that hefsek makes it, that roof over it makes it affiliate with the bottom people more than top people. That's also why I found that so difficult last time I learned. Of course, how you learn with like Pnei Moshe Korban, that's how you learn the next line. If there's a tikra, so according to Pnei Moshe means even if the bore is very high, since it's covered, it doesn't matter. It always marks the lower ones. According to Korban, it means even if the roof is very high, right? It doesn't matter. It's still a hefsek between the mirpeses and the bore, and it belongs to the lower ones. Amar Rebbe, so all information point out there's a name missing here because we don't quote Rebbe like this. In the middle it's clearly an Amora who's not a Tana. Ancient Nekev. That's talking about when there's no hole. But if there's a hole, then all bets are off. And now Bnei Moshe says, "Shematikra gabash al tachtonim he that if there's a roof on top of it, it belongs to low ones where there's no there's no hole in the or seal in that covering. If there's a hole, then the people on top can use through the hole in the bar. Therefore, the halacha returns if it's 10 volume high, it's adjacent to the mirpeses. Despite the fact that it has a covering, it belongs to the mirpeses. So according to the Carbonado, wherever the tikra is, it's holding that tikra. So then they can use through the tikra. So therefore, it belongs to the mirpeses. Okay. It says the next Mishnah. Another says Eruvo bebeis shar. Somebody puts his Eruv into a beis shar. Bachsager peses. I don't know if we actually need pictures, but there are pictures in the Perush Chai, so we might as well take a look at them. Where were they? Here's the Beis Shar, at the gatehouse. There's Achsadra, the open area. So, put your Eruv in a Beis Shar, Achsadra, and a mirpeses, a balcony, and Eruv. It's not an Eruv. V'adarshim saying lives in these structures in Oitzerlov. He doesn't have to place an Eruv. He's not going to be a Mokum Dira. But based on Tevin, if it's a warehouse in which you store straw, hay, based on Bakar, a house where like a stable, based on Eitzim, a warehouse for wood, based on Otos, in general, a place where you use to store stockpile stuff. Haray's Eruv, it's Eruv, Darsham Oser Alav, and similarly, somebody lives there. He answers because it's considered to be the structure which is suitable to live, although people don't normally live there. So this is a kind of a left field, but this is it says the Carbonado Sheish Ba'Bais Mokum B'di Rosso Shozesh Nesin Shom Kev Latznia. This is one of the frequent heterim we use in Eruvin Bizman Hazeh. If somebody has a in other words, he owns a place in your apartment, the place to put stuff there. He doesn't answer the chodesh chatzah diteu. So the chatzah says if he lives in the house. So therefore, the landlord owns your oven in your apartment, the refrigerator in your apartment. So then he doesn't have to participate with you in Eruv because of his tfisas yad in your house. That already makes it as if it's his rishus to unite the two of you without an Eruv. So it says where Beis Shar Shel Yachid. There's it's that which is saying that you don't need an Eruv in a Beis Shar. It's not about Eruv. It's a Beis Shar Shel Yachid. Which is not significant. It says Beis Shar Yachid. The Chatzah she'enu kavua she'ein tzorich lo kol kach she'yochel min ol chatzero. He doesn't need his chatzah so much that he has to. Because he can always lock himself off from his chatzar because he's an individual. So therefore his Beis Shar is not consequential. Beis Shar Sharabim, but if it's Beis Shar Sharabim, says the Carbonado, Sha'chatzar tzorich lios b'such tamid, minei anochim nasiv yartzim, chatzar constantly needs to be open because it's a common entry and exit for many people. But tzorich shimur harbei requires a lot of guarding. The Beis Shar is like a Bayis Kavua. When you can go Eruv there, but somebody lives there, does Aser. As the Kohen says, somebody says Eruv Adarsham Oser Olav. The person lives there Asers. That's the oral Beis Carbonado. But the Marapanim and Reb Chaim, and based on the Rambam, they changed the Girsa. And they say that according to them, a Beis Shar of a Yachid is a Dira because you don't have many people walking through it. So therefore, it is it's secluded enough to be a Dira, as opposed to a Beis Shar of the Rabbim, because many people walk through it. So therefore, it's not considered to be secluded enough to be a Beis Dira, and therefore it would not be a place where it requires an Eruv, and somebody lives there, it doesn't answer. So again, the opposite Gersos with opposite interpretations. Okay. Debate Rabbi Yana, I feel you say the Losba mean Olo. Even where the To go back at the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, Yesh V'Siyad. What's the V'Siyad? Even if he has a peg in the house in which he can hang his shoes. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Barber China Amar, I feel nishtos. I feel tavla. It says the carbon 8 and nishtos near shu kise kli. It's the Baalbai says a covering for a keli in the tenant's house. Usually nashtrashis. Some have a gears in nashtrashis. Fukma shtrashis shu chatilu dosh barza, a big slab of metal. I feel tavla luch shel eitz, a tablet of wood. Lishtachem tivlo. So adamish ein musarim, things which are not meisered. And the Aliva came over Babavli. So the machlekes seems to be between the two of them. I don't know if it's a machlekes in reality, but the machlekes in Svar, Rabbi Yana is something which is permanent, is more of a tvisas yad. That's why it's a peg in the wall. Rabbi Barber is something which you're going to use. On Shabbos, and therefore that's more of Tvisas Yad because it has to go in and out on Shabbos. So something which you can use. Well, something which you can use because it has to go in and out, not something necessarily used in Shabbos. Something you can use, and therefore even metalflin is more of Tvisas Yad. Ram Marvado Vanita b'Shabbos. It's got to be something which you can actually carry on Shabbos. So not Tevel, which you just, what the Kormei suggested, is the interpretation of Tivla, to being Tevel, that wouldn't work, right? So that's the Kormei says, Vadav Anita b'Shabbos, to who to have a Tvisas Yad. Parai Barachina served the Dav Anita b'Shabbos, ain't no Tvisas Yad, v'oser, the boy Shak v'Shavel the Broi. And he argues about Chanina. Chanina says, fakert, the opposite. He says it's Dav Anita b'Shabbos, so then it's not Tvisas Yad, because then the tenant could take it out and move it out of the house on Shabbos. So it's made it's a polar machlokas. One holds to be dafka, something which can be carried on Shabbos. Holds dafka, something which can't be carried on Shabbos. As the article points out, the Korban A is learning it like the Bavli, that there's a polar machlokas. It's not Shabbos. You don't necessarily have to learn that way. You can learn that according to Rabbi Barber Chanina, it could be something which is nitan Shabbos or not. And according to Rabbi Rav, has he dafka something which is nitan Shabbos. Not necessarily it's a polar machlokas that Rabbi Chanina says dafka something which can't be carried, and Rav says dafka something which can be carried. But know that Rabbi Chanina holds it could be either, and Rav says specifically something which be carried on Shabbos. Okay, so the next Yerushalmi is a chiddush in Tvisas Yad. That you don't need actually to have something there inside the house, but just access. So, Amrei ba Maisa Bechot Shaya Lushel Tanigon Fnim B'Bes Shchavero. But says a Maisa with a person, individual who had a chicken coop, which is further inside than his friend's house, and he can only get to that chicken coop through his friend's house. Nichnas Shelo B'Shus. And he would go in without permission because he had to get to his chicken coop. This story came from Rav. Well, and Rav was one that said it has to be done on Shabbos. You can't take chickens on Shabbos. They're muksa, right? Amar came to Zoliv name Mayim, since you have to put water in front of them. Kamoshu Davanita Shabbos is something which can be carried on Shabbos, and which you need access to on Shabbos, and therefore that's sufficient Tvisas Yad. So Reb Chaim says it seems to be a big chiddush in Yerushalmi that Tvisas Yad even works through the house of his friend, where his friend owns the house, and not just in a house which you loaned or rented out to someone else. Because here the Tvisas Yad is in a friend's house where you're not just a landlord, you are actually where you're not a landlord, but where it's your friend's house completely. You just have the right of access to it. So, and then he's not sure about it. Maybe Yerushalmi is lav dafka, but that's what he wants to. Initially, he says that seems to be the chiddush of the Yerushalmi. Okay, Rabbi Yaakov b'shem Shimon Talmudi the Rabbi Yochanan b'shem Shmuel. Sorry, Talmudi Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yaakov named Shmuel the student Rabbi Yochanan. Salkin lachbore. They said that they went up to Achbore, a certain place. And they relied on that. Rabbi Yana said that even a peg is sufficient, and that's considered to be Tvisas Yad. Chizkiah Allah Markain. Chizkiah did not say it this way. Ella Rabbi Chia Rabbi Asya Rabbi Salach. They went up to Tachbore. And for someone, they heard from the house of Rabbi Yana, it looks like Rabbi Yehuda, but not that Tfisas Yad works, but not what the quality, what the parameters of the Tfisas Yad were. So they didn't actually hear that that a peg suffices. Okay, look, hey, Haminiach basis. Somebody left his own house. He went to spend Shabbos in a different city. He saw whether it's a non-Jew or a Jew. He still answers. Says the deer below Banishma deer. He still retains his deer in his original location. So therefore, he still answers unless they did an Erev Skirs or Skirs Rishus. They very mer. If he says he's not present, he doesn't answer. It's not considered dira if he's not present for Shabbos. Akum Oyster, a non-Jew answers because he can come back on Shabbos. Yisrael ein Oyster. Yisrael doesn't answer. She'ein derech Yisrael lavo b'Shabbos. So Yisrael will not normally return to his house on Shabbos. Shein der as it says, Shein der Yisrael lavo b'Shabbos. Shimon Omer, afilu nichas beis lech lishbos as bitho, but osa ir ein osa. Even a person left and went to his spend Shabbos by his daughter in his city. He doesn't answer. Shekrai see Meliba already. Already traveled, removed his dira in his heart from his house, and it's by his daughter. So as the Kormeir points out, it's a bita dafka bito David nish dar chason. A person gets along well with his son-in-law, won't leave him till Shabbos. But no, if he goes to the son for Shabbos, a person does not leave in his house in his mind his potential home on Shabbos. Maybe his daughter will get into a fight with him. If he hates, and he will go back home. Okay, so the Gemara says Hado Meir. This is the logic of Meir. The Meir holds dira. It's very hard to get rid of your dira. The Meir Omer Habayis Hanol Oser. Even if you lock your house, it asks on others. The Yochel Lavo Eruv, because he can come back through an Eruv. Sorry, that's wrong. So let's look it up. It's period. Yochel Eruv is a new thing. So other Meir Omer Habayis Hanol Oser. Period. In other words, in locked house asers, he holds that the dira without even the owner is not present, even locked his house and went away, it's still considered to be a makom dira. New thing. Sorry. Eruv. Let's say a person come back from the city where he went by an erev tchumen. So do we say he asers? Because he's like a non-Jew, can come back anytime. Or maybe once he goes to another city, he's Mesiach Das, he's Mesiach Daito, and therefore it's not a concern. Similarly, we have a question of our Uba. What about if he, according to Rabbi Yossi, said he saw an oyster, what if he did come back, right? So what's the story? So we don't resolve that question. And we do say the Maruk, according to Rabbi Yossi, let's resolve it. Maruk from Shem Rav said, look, Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir, and the way the Korban Eda explains it, Rabbi Meir, is that if he came, he asers. In other words, that he comes back on Shabbos, he asers, and it's really possible. Not answering the question, but indirectly. In other words, yeah, if he went away, he doesn't answer, but he the Baba Shabbos echad akum echad yisrael oyster. Meir, it's not really Shita said Meir. Shita Meir is that if he doesn't come on Shabbos, he answers. The Pashup Shaning Gemara is that Meir means even if he's not present, you need an Erev, you need a Shita. The Schos Rishus. According to Korban Eda, no, we're really saying Meir that if he comes back. Okay, that's very difficult to say, but it's interesting. The art score brings down from the Leiden manuscript, and that you saw that it was like the Bavli, the Basling to Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so that actually the Gerson line in the manuscript is halacha Rabbi Shimon, that if he left, it doesn't answer, and even if he's in the same city, if he went to his daughter's house on Shabbos, he does not answer. Okay, halacha Bob. Bor sheben shtei chatzeros. You have a bor between two chatzeros. You have nice pictures in the article, but you also have nice pictures in the Shper Shchai. Ein mali mena b'Shabbos. You have a bor between 2 yards. Here you have a wall in the bor, on top of the bor, I should say. So the bor changes between ein mali b'Shabbos. Only can also mechitza gabas so atfachim, unless they can't each side. They didn't make an area with each other. They can't fill up from the well water on Shabbos. Unless they made a wall 10 feet high, bein milamatam, bein mitoch ogno, whether it's below or whether it is inside the cavity of the well. So bein milamaton would be like this, down here below. Okay, in the water. Bein mitoch ogno would be like this, inside the cavity of the well, but not or this one. Question what exactly that means, but this would be in this either of these could be lamata. That's the question what lamata is, but this is well, you know what? We have 3 possibilities. Either lamata could be this, lamata could be this, b'tochano could be this, b'tochano could be this, right? What it is, we'll have to figure out. But lamatan below or tochano within the cavity of the well. Right. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said, Beishamai lamata. Beishamai says below, right? Beishamai milamal, even on high. Okay. So again, the question is what exactly these things mean. Rabbi says, Lotim chitzik doim min akosher b'neim. As Korbanei says, "Bin akosh menishib mafsekas ben achatzeres mafsekas v'pnei abor." You don't need any of this stuff. Just need to have like the original picture, just on top. Since that works between the 2 chatzeros, it works also in the bor. Even doesn't go into the bor at all. Okay, so the Gemara says, "Milein d'Rabbanan pligan." We have a machlokes here. Between Rabbi Shua ben Levi and Rav. Okay, first we're going to bring down Rabbi Shua ben Levi and then Rav. And there's going to be machlokas between the 2 of them. Now their machlokas is in what Beis Hillel says. Okay, so there Lamalon, the way the Yerushalmi learns it, here the Lamalon means above the water, but not completely above the water, as we shall see, but above the water like this. Okay, so the Matan, according to this, would be down here. The Malon is over here. So what's the Malon? So Rabbi Yaakov Shimon Levi said, it's got to be the wall can be on top of the water, but it's got to go down far enough for the purposes of lowering the bucket. What does that mean? It could be a girsa should be changed a little bit. I might want to change it a little bit, but we'll deal with the girsa as is in front of it. What do you mean lower bucket? The lower bucket, the bucket itself will go from side to side inside the water. So they made a reckoning, and as soon as reckoning is based on how a person normally extends a bucket down in the water, or maybe it's just considered that the 4 tvachim is a standard of mokim, but in any event, the lead doesn't go more than 4 tvachim. So the water, the wall has to go 4 tvachim down into the water. It can't just be on the surface of the water. It's got to, or even drop into the water. That's when it says it's got to go 4 tvachim into the water to separate the sides. Rabbi Tabloy B'Shem Rav said, "Ein churba l'mayim." There's no churba for water. Like Korban points out, "Kalu shekil b'mayim yosim l'churba." The mayim feel chitz tluya materis. In the churba, a mechitza tluya is not matir, but in a bor, even the mechitza tluya is matir, and it doesn't. The mechitza doesn't have to go into water at all, as long as it's right at the surface of the water. Doesn't have to be mishukas b'mayim. That's good enough. Hayasham tikra. There was an awning coming from one of the houses. It went over the water. It goes down into the water because the pitikor yard was soising. So the pitikra normally requires two walls. So presumably here we're lenient because Kalashik mind that even if it's just an awning, it doesn't sound like we actually need halachic pitikra, which requires two walls adjacent to each other. Sounds like even just goes over the water. And that's why I have that the following statement. Haysham amaltera, if there's an amaltera, which means there's a board which is 4 tefachim wide. Again, even though it does have two walls adjacent to each other, but 4 tefachim is a sheer normally of a tikra. So you have it at the bottom. You see it as if it goes down and closes off the at the bottom. And that brings us mamish to the bottom of the Hafnun Vav Amud Beis. So we'll stop here for today.